All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another community college community conversation. We're really excited to have a couple of special guests, Nupur and Menaka, here with us today. Before we get started with the introductions and all of that, I just wanted to welcome everybody to the space. We talked for a second about the actual norms and the expectations around participation today. Just to say a 2-second summary of this, you're coming as an individual to our community to learn, to share if you want to, and to represent nothing but yourself. If you want to come to this conversation, you can show up in any way you prefer to. Today, we're going to focus on healthcare, we're going to focus on sustainability, and we're going to focus on technology. And the theme for this semester or for this quarter is actually what we call Designing World Peace, where peace is an acronym for policy, ethics, AI and ML technology, culture, and the environment. So those are the 5 pillars that over these 10 weeks that we'll speak about. This is a course that was born at Stanford, and really excited to build the community over the last year and a half or so that we've been doing these. All right, so quickly, the question that we asked ourselves in coming to this class and this framework for bringing the community for corporate America and for students together is, how do we make space for Black and Brown genius, expertise, and creativity? So today with Nupur and Menaka, we're going to hear from somebody who sits outside of the mainstream in their field, to powerhouse women in technology who have various levels of subject matter expertise in their spaces. So to let everybody know the history, this is how we started, and really excited about how we're making progress towards this. This is a picture of the team on the Stanford side. These are the folks that have brought this experience to you for the most part. I'm Brandon. In the middle, on the top is Ariam. On the top right, we've got Pia. Bottom left, Adrian. Bottom middle, Nari. And bottom right, Marv. And I want to say it's nice to meet you, and then get into actually an introduction of our actual special guest. So I'll hand the popcorn over to you, Nupur, just to do just a 2 to 3 minute introduction. I'll do that as well for Menaka. And then before we jump into the actual Q&A, I'll say a couple of remarks. But for now, say hi to the people, Nupur. Tell people who you are, where you are, and what you're focused on.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I live in San Francisco and currently work at a company called Grand Rounds Health. We recently merged with another company called Doctor on Demand, in case you've heard that name. But basically a healthcare company that's focused on raising the standard of healthcare for everyone, everywhere. And a lot of what I spend my time on is making sure that we are providing high quality care to everyone in the country that has access to us, so that they have good outcomes. Outside of work, I have a ton of passion in healthcare in general. I'll talk a little bit about certain nonprofits I'm involved in. Almost everything has an essence of try to serve people that do not always have access to the best care. So how can we democratize access to high quality care is what drives me. On a personal note, I live with my husband in Hayes Valley, and I've been in San Francisco for many years. And I know we'll get into some other questions later. And my sister Nena's on the call.
Perfect. Thanks, Nupur. Let's hand the popcorn over to Menaka as well. Feel free to take a couple minutes. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you're focused on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brendan. Hi, Nupur. Nice to meet you also virtually here. This is such a great initiative. First and foremost, I'm extremely connected to, serving and giving back to the community. So I'm very honored to play that small part to educate what the lessons that I've learned or the knowledge that I have in this space and give it back to the community. So very delighted for this invitation. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the tech for close to 18 years. Primarily, I have engineering background, so I've built enterprise applications. And then in the last 4 years, I've been with a company called Amazon. In a subsidiary that I work is AWS. So the area that I'm extremely passionate about is sustainability. And I also serve in the Global Sustainability Board, which manages the governance and policies within the company, as well as to provide awareness to the employees to live in a more sustainable way. So we call that program as the Ambassador Program, and I manage and I co-chair that program at a global level. A little bit about myself. I live in San Francisco as well, in a city in the east side of the San Francisco Bay, which is San Ramon. My husband and I have been living in this Bay Area for the last 10 years, and I have 3 children. I'm a mom of twins. So I have a lot of exciting moments that I've shared with twins, and they are boys. So it's double trouble. So twins and boys. And then my comfort is my daughter. So she's a 10-year-old. She's my darling. And without her, I don't know what I would have done. So it's just a little bit about myself. So I'm really looking forward to share what I've learned and also be open to answer any questions either now or provide any feedback as a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you for that, both Nupur and Menaka. Man, double trouble. I can only imagine 2 twin boys right now, especially coming out of COVID and being like locked down. So we'll have a separate kind of side conversation about how you manage, but God bless you. Maybe if you wanted to queue up, Pia, the questions that we had before. I know that we're going to talk a bunch about healthcare and AI, and then a bunch about sustainability. We actually had 2 graphics that we wanted to share. So I wanted people to start to think about maybe the answer to this question and leverage the chat feature to just start to get our minds into the swing of things. So take a look at this question, and just as it stands right now for the community, give a yes, a no, or a maybe to this initial prompt. Just take 30 seconds to read here, and we'll revisit some of this stuff as we ask our questions and stuff. So take 30 seconds on this one. Has AI positively impacted your healthcare experiences? Yes, no, or maybe. And as you pop that into the chat, I'm going to go in 3, 2, 1 over to the next one. It's going to focus on this concept that we call the circular economy. So take a look at this one. This is more in the realm of sustainability. And take a look at this slide and just quickly, same question with the yes, no, maybe. Start to think through this. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to our main slide in 3 and 2 and then 1, and we'll look at the replies in the chat a little bit later. But just to kick off this conversation about healthcare and sustainability and tech, maybe to get to know you a little bit better and a little bit more. Nupur, I'll give this to you, and then also to Menaka. Like, give us the origin story, like how you found your way into kind of the thing that you're doing right now. Like, did you always know from a little girl that you were going to be the chief product officer at a technology company that focused on better outcomes for healthcare? Like, you probably did know that, didn't you? But maybe not. I'm going to do the popcorn and you tell me just the origin story, a couple minutes there.
No, growing up, I was focused on torturing my sister. So no, I didn't know that. But, so maybe I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here, and I'll be quick. So similar to Menaka, I actually studied engineering, and I remember being at Cisco where Brandon and I used to work. And I just honestly, I was working on some wireless access point project that was trying to extend the reach of the access point by like 1/2 mile or something. And I had a pretty existential moment where I didn't know what I was doing with my life because I didn't really care for the impact I was having. And so I ended up coming to Stanford Business School just to sort of get a reset and try and see what is it that I want to do that would be a little bit more fulfilling. And uh, ironically, one of the courses that changed the course of my trajectory in a pretty big way was at the Stanford Design School. It was a course called Designing for Extreme Affordability. And it was a really interesting course because you use technology, you use business, but you're applying it towards a problem that the developing world was facing. And I happened to get into a healthcare project. And initially, I was really upset it was healthcare. I was like, healthcare is so slow and boring. Why am I stuck on this project? But the project was based in India, where we are originally from. And, I figured this would give me a free trip to India. So let's try it. And I ended up loving it because it felt like you were using your engineering background and business skills, but for something that actually was going to have a positive impact. And specifically, the project was trying to design a low-cost jaundice device for babies. And so, probably for the first time in my life, I felt pretty fulfilled through work because it felt like work was going towards a larger mission and making stuff better. And so, since school, I have sought out stuff in healthcare. Initially it was telemedicine, and then thankfully digital health took off. I've been out of school for about 10 years and have been in healthcare for most of it. And so I made my way to a couple of digital health companies and landed at Grand Rounds because I was looking for a company that prioritized the patient and was relatively patient-centric and member-centric, but also was able to prove that they're actually improving healthcare. So didn't know since I was a child that this is what I wanted to be, but thankfully found my way to digital health, and will probably stay here for a very long time because it's a pretty big place that we can create a big positive impact on the world.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that. And same question to you, Menaka. Like, did you, as a small little girl, know that this is the life that was ahead of you, or were there some insights and some moments of kind of the light bulb going off to get you from that little girl to the point where you are right now?
Yeah, so it's actually very funny when I try to trace back to the days that I don't even know what I was doing, right? See, a little bit about myself. I was born in India, and I lived in the south part of India in a place called Chennai. And my grandparents, they lived in a small village. So every holiday, I get to go and visit my grandparents. And we had a very modest family, small group of friends. And then, everything in that small town was somewhat related to you. The folks that are related to you in one way or the other. So very small community, I would say. One of the things that I really, really enjoyed going back, and I lived in a big city, but every vacation I used to go back to this village. I never stayed home when I went for my vacation. I always connected to the fields. I went out, I played with my friends, I connected with my cousins and relatives. So there was something in me that really, really loved being outdoor, being with the nature and connecting myself, to the outdoor world than, just retaining myself at home. So that's always been me. That's always been my hobby, my passion. Even today I go on long hikes. Every opportunity that I get or every time that I get for myself, the first thing is, where should I go? Where can I hike? And what new things can I see that connects me back to the nature? Now, tying that back to the sustainability initiative, sustainability wasn't a big thing for a very long time. So, if you look at the last 5 to 10 years, people have put sustainability in the back burner, right? People have thought, hey, you know what, resources are unlimited. We can emit as many, greenhouse gases into this environment. Who cares? Nothing happens. But as time ran out, we have seen extreme weathers in all parts of the world. And that slowly started soaking into nations and to governments, and policymakers are now taking sustainability in a very serious way. And, there was a Paris Agreement that was formed with so many different countries coming together and talking about climate change and, having a climate pledge. We have larger corporations now forming consortiums to make an impact on the climate change. So that naturally to me was, hey, you know what, like I connect so well with the nature, and there is something that's happening that's affecting, the calamities to our earth, and it's our responsibility, individual responsibility, that we have to take ownership. So I started researching 3 years ago. I put my effort, I bought a lot of books. I started researching about this. And what I found out was there is so much of technology behind this. We really, really have to innovate ourselves out of this problem. Even if you look at natural gases, and if you look at the ones that we need to do for replacement for natural gases to the biofuels, everything that goes into this ecosystem, there is a research on what can be done to live in a more sustainable way, right? And then we'll talk a little bit about circular economy at a later time. But then, my passion came in through as a child, and what I was really connected, and what is my passion, and what's my hobby. And naturally, when I saw an opportunity to, engage and to evangelize myself, I just took advantage of that. So that's how this started for me, Brendan.
Yeah, thank you for that. And feel free to the community out there, as you have questions, Pia will moderate the chat, and we want to make it a two-way conversation. I've got some prepared ones that we'll ask to Nupur and Menaka, but then towards the end, I think we will kind of open up the forum and want you to ask questions as well about anything pertaining to healthcare, to sustainability, and to technology, amongst other things, right? So yeah, to turn the question back to Nupur, let's say like I'm in the community right now, I don't know much about healthcare or the technology behind it. Can you give like a little bit of a kind of a primer? You started in this space a long time ago, and I would presume that we made like a bunch of advancements and that you've seen some really cool stuff from a decade ago to now. Could you set the table for us in terms of I'm at zero knowledge or 100 level knowledge to, okay, now I get a little bit about what we're facing, what we're up against, what some of the challenges are, what some of the opportunities are?
Yeah, I'll give you, healthcare, I would say, is 10 years behind every other industry when you think of the adoption of technology. Like, one question I'd ask the audience is, when is the last time you had a positive tech experience with healthcare? I'm pretty sure the answer is never. Or maybe, if you have a concierge doctor, you may have texted them, and that's like your description of, an amazing tech experience. So the thing that's if you look at healthcare right now, if you look at the rest of our lives, like you have tech enabling everything, right? When you think of, yes, it's not terrible, but yes, it's not bad. I'm responding to the comments. If you look at the rest of your life, if I think of a product, I can order it on Amazon. When I reach home, it'll be right there. If I want to go somewhere, I can open up the Waze app, and Waze will literally take information from everybody around me and send me to the correct route, right? If I think of a coffee, Starbucks has the last coffee I ordered at the last location, and within minutes, it'll accurately tell me exactly where I can get my coffee. Healthcare doesn't have that today, right? The user-centered design is completely missing. Like it doesn't exist. Healthcare is built around the participants in healthcare that make money, right? You go into a hospital, you are there based on the doctor's schedule when they are available, and you're going into their room, not in a way that's actually comfortable to you, right? As a consumer, I don't want to be sitting in a waiting room with other sick people. I don't want to be sitting in a small cold room with a stranger with my clothes off talking about my healthcare problems. Like, nobody thinks about the experience of the member when it comes to healthcare, and most of healthcare is not member-centered at all. So when you think of technology and healthcare, we're all making like small advancements, right? There's to the point someone made, there's healthcare systems like Kaiser and Stanford and Sutter that are trying to create apps to make it a little bit easier for the patient to interact with their providers, right? None of the apps are as great because, again, a lot of the apps are created so that the hospital system can create more money and get more business from the patient, but aren't probably at the level of member centricity we see in other parts of our lives, right? You see, insurance companies use a lot of data and technology to try and segment different risks to different users, but they use that honestly so that they can optimize their revenue, right? They want to make sure that, not all the time, sometimes they do it to reach out to the right members and what have you, but the tech that's used in insurance companies doesn't usually translate into the member experience, right? It's used for revenue optimization or the experience of the insurance company. Obviously, the one slight silver lining with COVID was the adoption of telehealth, right? Before that, many people were hesitant with telehealth. They may use it just for urgent care settings. But, what we saw with COVID is because everybody was scared to go into the hospital unless they absolutely needed to, the adoption of telehealth skyrocketed completely, right? So, which is really great because many users and consumers have now tried telehealth and they feel now pretty comfortable with the concept of seeing a doctor virtually, and they like the convenience of it. And slowly they're building trust with that provider. Teletherapy took off like crazy, right? And teletherapy is one where outcomes have actually been studied that, the therapy that you do virtually has the same or better outcomes than when you do it in person. So you're seeing certain instances where technology is actually democratizing access on some level. When you think of a patient that's, depressed or anxious or has a behavioral health need, sometimes it's like a lot of work to even think of like putting clothes on, getting in your car, driving to a therapist's office. And in smaller communities, people don't want to drive there because everyone knows that you're at the therapist's office, and there's still stigma. It's getting a bit better. And so the way I would describe health tech is it's nowhere close to where consumer tech is. It's honestly not even close to fintech. The fact that we still use the term digital health is indicative of the fact that health, we don't say online banking anymore, right? You just expect a bank to have an online component. You don't say online grocery shopping, you just expect every grocery store has, but the digital health term and the transformation in healthcare is still like a term, which shows that technology in healthcare still has a ways to go. And so when I see the opportunities in healthcare, I think the biggest opportunity is actually to have companies that are a lot more member centered, that actually design with the member at the center, so that you optimize for their outcomes and have it be as equitable as humanly possible. But when you think of health tech, it's obviously a giant industry with multiple stakeholders. Tech is being used for different use cases, but my personal interest lies in opportunities to make it better for the member.
Yeah, that's powerful to think about, like the fact that you still have to say digital or like online. And, I know in my family, there's so many stigmas around obesity, around kind of the way that our community might eat or shop. And it's such an uphill battle to even socialize some of these things, let alone get to the next step about like changing behaviors around this so that we have better outcomes. So I definitely appreciate your commentary there. And I want to kind of move it over to Menaka on the sustainability side. And maybe these two items are linked by technology, but like in terms of how you see the largest challenges that we have in order to achieve sustainability. Like there's stuff like the climate pledge, there's stuff like the Paris agreements that you mentioned in order to get us thinking at a macro level. Are there just some things that you can call out as considerations that individuals can do? And then maybe to Nupur's point, like where are we falling short in terms of sustainability being able to go further and go faster from where we sit today?
Yeah, so Brendan, absolutely. So let's remember these two numbers, okay? So 51 billion and net zero. So when I say 51 billion is the amount of tons of carbon emission. There are many greenhouse gases, but in the sustainability phase, we kind of call that as carbon. Everything is related to carbon. So 51 billion is the emission of tons of emissions that we produce on an average. And of course, during the time of COVID, it kind of went down because people were in commuting and some of the resources was not extensively used. But on an average, it's 51 billion throughout the globe, right? And where we want to get to is net zero. So that is not going to be easy without technology. That's number one. Now, in terms of sustainability as an overall ecosystem, the mental model that we have to work towards is anything and everything that we do has a carbon emission to it. For example, let's talk about our day in a life, right? We wake up in the morning, we go to work, we commute to work, we leverage transportation, that involves carbon emission. The bricks that we consume, the way that crops are grown, the way the feeds are being produced, that has a carbon emission to it. Our housing, if the heating and cooling systems that we leverage in the house, that has a carbon impact to it, right? So it is a broad ecosystem. And in addition to that, think about the things that we are digitizing nowadays, right? Like shipments, in addition to transportation, packaging, everything has an impact in our life. So on an average individual, just like the way gadgets are connected around you, you are producing or you are emitting sources, or you're utilizing tools that produces the carbon emission to this planet, right? Now, where we want to get to in either 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years is not going to happen without the help of technology there. And let's start with renewables, right? We want to get to a path of 100% renewables. Now, using wind, like the power of the sun, or water emissions. So these are the renewables that we want to leverage. But these are not available in every part of the world, right? Because of the climate changes that we are living in different zones. So we really have to find a way to apply these renewables to the grids in a way that we can store them, we can consume them, and use them in every part of the world. So we need to first form a very connected grid of renewables. And that helps in the overall renewable utilization and reducing the carbon that is emitted because of what is required from the production of coal. Now, in terms of waste reduction, that's where the circular economy really comes in. So when you look at waste reduction, right, we're talking about taking a raw material. That raw material goes into the design and production and distribution, consumption. And then what happens today? It probably after a certain amount of use, it's going into waste, because the materials that we choose for those manufacturing are the materials that cannot be reused and recycled. So there has to be innovation around reuse and recycling of materials. So there is a lot of research using data and machine learning and AI ML, obviously being a big player over there, trying to understand the compositions of materials and which materials are better for recycling and reusing and which materials are not. A very small example, let's take aluminum, right? Aluminum can be recycled as many times as possible, while plastic is not. Then certain varieties of plastic is not. So we really have to start incorporating these insights and data into the production of the equipment that we leverage, the phones that we manufacture, or the computers that we use, or the cars and the materials that we have. So that revolves the waste reduction as also gets into the circular economy of, can I buy a material and that material can go into this recycle, and then the recycle continues to happen in a circular manner. So the waste gets reduced. As the waste gets reduced, the amount of carbon emissions selectively goes down. So that is the innovation that we have to drive. And most of this innovation requires tons and tons of data, right? And some of this data that's already out there, or some of the data that we have to accumulate, store, process, and compute these data. So it requires heavy amount of cloud that you have to rely on to actually leverage this data to find innovations in areas of material packing. And the other one that I would like to talk about is, let's take a material, right? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you purchase something from Amazon, you may have got like really, really bigger boxes, because you may wonder, like, I just purchased such a small thing. Why did I get a bigger box? Because machines are actually making the decision between what to use and what shipments and what kind of packaging that needs to happen. Today, because of innovation, because of data aggregation, we are able to actually innovate and find out that if it is a certain material, what kind of padding materials is required, and can we reduce the amount of packaging that's required. And that goes from all the way from online shipping to anything else that requires this packaging materials that's required, and thus further reducing the waste. So, sustainability to me plays a role in everything that you do in a day-to-day basis. And as individuals, it is our responsibility, besides corporations, besides governments, besides regulations, it is really our individual responsibility to make sustainable choices, right? When you purchase something, look for greener products. When you are leveraging electricity in your house, try to go for a more economical way, install solar systems if you are in an area that you can leverage the solar systems, right? Like the sun grids and things like that. So it's individuals that we have to make these choices. And we have to be conscious. So at the end of the day, it is about leveraging the resources that we have today without compromising the need for the future. If we use all these resources and if it's going to cause climate disasters, then what about the future that we will be compromising too? So it is our responsibility to take that and act in a more sensible manner and inculcate these kinds of behavior even for our children on why these choices are being made and kind of cultivate that from ground up.
Yeah, I love that. Even like to localize that choice and that futures thinking to the individual. Like over the last 2 weeks, like we've seen, a bunch of social media companies force us to think about what's necessary in terms of regulation, in terms of legislation. And for people that are not necessarily focused on 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, the education at the individual level is something that is a change for our community, right? So I appreciate you double clicking on that point. I wanted to pivot a little bit to a question that unites both of you, actually, since you're both kind of women that are in the technology industry. You've probably been doubted. You've probably been not listened to and talked over. Like there's probably been some experiences that you could reflect on. And then there's probably some mentors and people that have believed in you and sponsors as well. So I wanted to take a minute to have you reflect on things for our community, for people who sit outside of the mainstream and might want to enter kind of these areas of healthcare, of AI and ML, of tech, of sustainability, personal things and anecdotes that you might offer up. I'll start with you, Nupur, to say, hey, this has been challenging over the time. And then this has also been really, really useful. And like these people have been just awesome to keep me in the industry or to keep me accelerating in my career. So I'll pass that question over to you, Nupur, first, and then come to you, Menaka, as well.
Yeah, for sure. I probably felt it first when I was in my undergrad. I did electrical engineering and there were only 10% girls. And I remember just being shocked and also horrified and sad. And I remember being doubted in Michigan when I would get job offers that the boys in the class wouldn't get, and they would end up attributing that to me being a girl when my GPA was better than them, but nobody cared about that. And so the anger had been building for a while on, feeling like, you even if something good happens, it gets taken away from you and attributed to something that's not in your control, irrespective of how hard you're working. And I'd say when I was junior, on some reason, on like one of the reasons why I'm interested in giving back is I'll acknowledge that I've had a fair amount of luck in my life. Even though I was, didn't totally love what I was doing at Cisco, my first manager was incredibly supportive. And the word that comes to mind is like confidence and psychological comfort. And I felt like I thankfully had it in the environment that I was in at work. There were instances where I would feel doubted or I would feel like someone was undermining me for reasons that were out of my control. And honestly, my formula was just to try and work hard and prove them wrong. And, that doesn't obviously always, not everybody has the luck to rely on that. But this was tougher when I was younger in my career. It's become easier as I've gotten more senior. Probably one of the big things that has also helped is when I was at, when I joined the company that I'm at right now, I actually did not ever do a good job of like advocating for myself or like asking for certain things. But I was lucky to have a manager who, there was a particular instance where he was trying to hire a head of product and I did not raise my hand because I didn't think I deserved it. And he thankfully came and asked me, like, why have you not asked me for this job? And that was a huge pivotal moment. The sad news is it's mostly men in my career that have given me these opportunities, right? I wish I could have said that there was a woman leader who, but I will attribute, like, there's many instances where I felt like including customer meetings where I show up and they'll just assume that the middle-aged white man usually is my boss when sometimes he's on my team. But the assumption will be that he's the most senior person. There was times where I've gone to business meetings where that assumption was, or this time because I'm an Indian name and people don't know, sometimes I've been referred to as Mr. Nupur before they see me. So there'll be so there's all sorts of things you come across. But on the positive side, the biggest thing that has helped me is thankfully having managers and mentors that have looked out for me. And not everyone is lucky, and I recognize that. I think the big reason why I'm so driven to give back is because I have this sense of guilt almost that I've been lucky with all these things in my life. I've had the right manager, the right mentor, the right person that opened the right door for me. Even getting into some of the schools I got into is purely luck. Sometimes there's so many qualified people that apply, and I feel very grateful that the universe has been good to me. And so, but I think what you're saying is totally right. Some of the cards have fallen my way, and so sort of I almost feel a responsibility now that I'm obviously in a more senior role in the company, to watch out for if any of this behavior is happening with other minority groups in the company, right? Whether it's women of color or just the Black or brown community. I tend to actively watch out and see where I can help or where I need to say something, or if I purposely see someone's being quiet because of confidence issues, which I've certainly had earlier on in my career, I try and do my best to draw them out. But I'll be the first to admit that, if I've sort of had the right cards dealt, and I've had the luck to have the right managers that look beyond the fact that I was a woman of color and gave me some of the opportunities that have thankfully, gotten me to where I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. I heard the term or the anecdote, God uses crooked sticks to draw straight lines sometimes. So we've always got like a fun story to tell and to offer to the community here. But I appreciate it and wanted to just put out some of those gems for people to pick up and put in their back pockets as they move forward from this. So Menaka, I'll pass you the popcorn as well to reflect on some of the challenges, reflect on some of the good stuff that's happened as well, and the people who've helped to support you on your path.
Absolutely. See, one thing earlier on, which I did not understand, and I used to get really, really upset and frustrated, is, things wasn't easy, right? When I expect, hey, listen, I am delivering, I joined the tech back in 2002, 2003 timeline. At that time, there was no big talks about. Today, we're talking about women in board. We're talking about, increasing the amount of women in leadership position. Those things at that time, it wasn't something that a topic of interest for anyone, right? You're just one among an employee. So, people are not going to give you any special privileges because you're a woman or you're a woman of color. Even though, in order to create equality and to create equity, you have to look at, the minority group and give them the opportunity to shine and raise in employment. But, back in days, you don't have all of that. So, things that I learned in a very hard way was, one thing that I felt, and I mean, my first job I took was in a small company called Norfolk Southern in the south of Virginia. And, I was surrounded by all white men and white women. I was the only minority women in that company. When I first joined the company, I didn't know what it was. Like, I just felt like, okay, do I have a conscience of feeling different? Maybe now if I join a company like that, I would feel like, oh my God, I'm feeling a little bit different. But back in days, it was pretty normal. But one thing that I learned was earning trust plays a huge role in people stepping up for you, right? It doesn't happen, at least for the minority people or for the women and minority or women of color, it doesn't happen because you are who you are, because you're born with certain privileges. But with hard work, with persistence, and with dedication, you gradually build the trust, and that trust will help you because people will step in for you and give you those opportunities. So the one thing that I learned from those opportunities that I was facing was, be patient, number one is, and try to create a brand for yourself and distinguish yourself from others in a way that either it's a community give back or the things that you're passionate about, that you're working on, continues to stay focused on that and earn the trust and respect others and be in a position that people respect you. I never felt that leadership is about bossiness. I never felt that leadership is about micromanagement. It's about influencing. It's about persuading people. And that has its own special skills. So, all of this early career taught me all of that, ability to influence, ability to persuade, and also earn the trust of the team. And because of that hard work and because of the trust that I was able to earn, I got opportunities from engineering. I moved into leadership, 10 years, 12 years ago, I moved into leadership and then grew in my leadership career as well. And, to Nupur's point, something that we both have in common is, the people who gave me those opportunities were all men for some reason. I don't know why. It's just a coincidence. It could have been just a coincidence. But for me, the most important thing for me is when I'm building my team and the team that I have built, I want to make sure that, especially women and women of color and minority women are given a voice. They have the, ability to speak up and represent themselves without being judged and without any fear of expressing themselves. So that is something super important to me in my team and the culture that I'm building in my team. And the support that I can only do that if I have the support from my higher ups, right? And it's my responsibility to make sure that I build a strong relationship with the higher ups. So when I step up and do the right things for my team, I have the right leadership support. So it's important that, women support another women and also make sure that it's our own responsibility to keep in mind that there is no compression algorithm to hard work or there's no compression algorithm to experience and dedication. You're not going to get something because you're white, you're black, or you're a woman or you're a man. It's going to come out of the effort that you do and the push that people are going to give you because they're going to look at you a little differently. Look at this person, she's a minority, but she's able to do this, she's able to win the trust. That's when people will really start respecting you, not just by your looks or not by your gender or not by your color of the skin. So I don't think there is any compression to that, Brendan.
Yeah, thank you for that. This next question will be the last one I asked before I invite the community to come up. And maybe we all go on like video after this one to just allow kind of the forum to happen. But Menaka, you talked a lot about kind of setting an intention in your mind and having leadership buy-in to be able to create the future that you want for your teams and for kind of your organization. And in healthcare, I have a similar question for Nupur, like what's the kind of experience that you have in terms of setting an intention and creating a culture that maybe will start with you and your small team and hopefully permeate out to the future that you want to see eventually?
Do you want me to go first? Or?
Oh yeah, I'm giving that one to Nupur.
Okay, awesome. So there's a couple of things that I think a lot about. And I'll just hit a few. So the thing that I try and be really intentional about is in our product design, we are really designing for the entire population versus designing for the conference room, right? I'm not trying to create healthcare that works for privileged Bay Area folks, even though I'm totally okay if we use it. But the thing that's incredibly important to me is designing healthcare that looks like United States, the entire country. And specifically, we've actually seen, one of the things that we've been focused a lot on, especially since last year, after a lot of the racial unrest, is specifically making sure that healthcare works for any part of the community that needs extra care. So for example, we acquired a company last year that was focused on providing equitable healthcare for the LGBTQ population. And so, which was really incredibly helpful. And recently we have set up a coalition with a couple of companies to design a product that helps with healthcare navigation for the Black community, because just the outcomes we're seeing is really terrible, right? If you look at the maternal mortality rates of the Black women, it's 3 to 4 times worse than someone who's white. And so just being incredibly intentional that the healthcare you're creating is actually being created in an equitable fashion for the entire country, especially for people that have probably the biggest unmet needs, right? So that's one thing I think a lot about. Second, along the theme of member centricity, like I feel like tech is so advanced, there's amazing AI and ML models that can predict exactly what movie you should watch and you love, and or the exact right ad to put on Instagram so that you buy your 50th shoe. But a lot of this tech needs to be used for better purposes, honestly. So really passionate about, the team being intentional about using some of these models to, predict who's going to be a high quality doctor, or predict which patient's going to be rising risk and lives in a community with bad resources, and how can you use that data and tech to good use to actually provide good healthcare, right? So being really intentional about how we use some of the advancements in tech, but for being really thoughtful about our patients in a big way, right? That's something I think a lot about. And then the last piece, and this is something, it's one of our company values, and it's relevant to this conversation, so I'll bring it up. I think the way we will impact healthcare in a big way is if we truly embrace diverse perspectives. And I mean that in every way. Like there's a beauty to bringing doctors together with data scientists, together with designers, that are really good with design thinking, with engineers, product managers, business people, sort of honestly replicating what I loved about the D School. And so just being intentional about not being in your echo chamber with your ideas, and inviting as many, with the team, we talk a lot about, okay, you're designing for outcomes, but have you been intentional about diverse perspectives? And we mean diversity in every way, right? Whether it's age, gender, race, or it's a functional group within the company. I just think you can have such a better impact if you have like a data scientist challenging a doctor, or like a researcher in the room talking about what members actually want, or someone that has actually talked to the community that represents, the type of products we want to build. And so there's a lot that I wish for, for my team and for the impact that we can have on healthcare. But hopefully, some of those insights, sound relevant irrespective of what project you're working on.
Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate that, and I think Menaka, you've touched on some of the answer to that particular question when you went through some of what you talked about in terms of recyclables and like material science and like what we're using in packaging. So I'll ask you a different last question in terms of what I call the juggle struggle. So like, how do you kind of maintain your passion for sustainability while doing the work that you do in tech, while also having like the family balance with twin boys who are like wrecking probably each other? Like give us a sense, like mental health, we have not talked about, balance, we have not talked about. Give us a little bit as a last question before people start coming up with their own on the juggle struggle and how you manage to balance.
Yeah, so Brendan, for me, the work that I'm doing is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and it's an extension to my job. For example, I manage the solutions architect team, which is responsible for working with the customers to migrate their workloads to the cloud. And one of the primary drivers, if you look at companies move to the cloud, is reducing carbon footprint. So that ties back to the work that I'm actually doing. And it also ties back to my day-to-day life in telling my husband what trash cans to use, how to saute trash, because men is terrible in sauteing trash. I will tell that. As many times I've explained, they are really terrible in sauteing trash. Yes, there you go. So wish there is like some kind of a machine learning that, that generates an alert every time when people does wrong sorting. But at the end of the day, for me, it's more like, the passion that I chose. I was fortunate enough to be an extension to my job, and I've made it an extension to my job very intentionally. And the focus area that I'm working on right now, specifically leading, is taking the sustainability innovation and evangelizing it to the customers and making them sustainable in a corporate way, and expanding that sustainability lessons learned back into our corporate and making us more sustainable. So eventually we're creating an ecosystem of this consortium that, collectively we can make an impact. Now, when it comes to priorities, I believe in ruthless priorities. So prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. As a leader, my job is not for me to do it, but it's about giving responsibilities to my team and they taking the responsibilities and driving it and ability to succeed in it. So I want to give them the spotlight. So it's about prioritization. It's about passion, prioritization, and a purpose, and also making sure that you're building a team that is self-sustainable, right? I mean, you're not micromanaging them, and I don't want to be micromanaging them. It's about teaching them how to fish, and they go about do it and give them the responsibilities and give them the ability to shine and give them the ability to grow as a part of that. So if you do all of this in a well-balanced way, Brendan, I think, it's not that hard of a job. I think I can even take another extra gig.
Okay. We might load you up. So I appreciate that. And I'll transition from the actual slides themselves, say thank you for answering my questions. And then maybe we go out of this into a small enough group for us to be able to come up and actually ask Menaka and Nupur questions directly, or if you've got questions for other of the community members, this is kind of 5 o'clock until is basically the forum part. So anything interesting, I'll start to scroll the comments as well to see if there's anything there, but like any stuff that has sparked your minds for any of the folks that are listening out there, feel free to come on video or not, or feel free to come off mute and start to ask some questions here. Any brave souls out there? And I might flip it and ask Nupur or Menaka, do you have questions for the community or things that you're curious about hearing from the small group that we've got today, or the broader community of what we've been able to build over the last 18 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, I have a really quick question to the community. I mean, you are part of this community college edition, and you listen to many seminars and the forums that Brendan and the leadership team has put together. How do you take this and put it back and tie it back in your day-to-day? And how has this benefited you, and where are you kind of incorporating this in your life? Anybody for that matter.
So
Yep, Kaloma, go ahead.
So there's two things from today's thing that I take back to my context, which is a church religious context, is as you were talking about like the user interface and how we relate with people, and it is not really user-centric.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm looking at my website, I'm looking at our Facebook page, looking at the language, and I'm going, yeah, or we are not really user-centric. And then the other thing, something that's come up a lot in faith spaces is the marginalization of really qualified women. And I forget who told the story. It was really valuable where you said there were managers and other people that stood up for you.
Mm.
And I think like, I need to be that person for somebody else.
Mm.
And I need to create those opportunities. So that's what I learned listening. Thank you all so much. Really, really insightful talk that really went across.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that question, Menaka, and beautiful answer too. I think we've got a great opportunity, Kaloma, to step up, stand up, and hopefully we'll see some positive change. So Jan, I saw you come off of video or onto video, so feel free to offer your question. What you got?
I thought he had did he get his question answered, the Reverend?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Sorry. As somebody who, 10 years ago, I had a very high position in tech. And because, I wish that the Me Too movement, and I'll just leave it at that, existed back then, because my growth trajectory, my career trajectory would be much different. And I just got out of it and had to chart my own course. And I'm in experience in service design, and which is, still evolving and become, and I'm still learning so much about it. How do you not overwhelm yourself with learning, right? Like, and just have that confidence to get back out there because you've stepped away, but so you might not have the portfolio you have in this new discipline or this, that you would have before. Like, how do you pace yourself on what you're learning so that, you're learning more than being unrealistic with yourself, that you're really just trying to keep ahead and not trying to feel like, oh, like you're trying to keep up with everything that's new. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Nupur, I see you nodding. You want to take a stab at that? That speaks to that balance question. You could go like so hard on one thing, but then kind of burn out and not be able to maintain it for very long. So how have you managed to continue to learn, but continue to like take care of yourself as you grow and develop?
I have found that the more I take care of myself, the more I learn. So simple experiment I've been running is on the balance of like exercise, sleep, and work, and there is something as pushing yourself so much that you're not effective. And obviously taken to the extreme, you can obviously have a breakdown. So don't do that. The other thing that you mentioned that I'd wondered about, Jan, for yourself, and these are questions I've asked myself as well, is to what end are you learning? Like, what's the reason, what's driving you? And then how do you find confidence that you maybe have learned enough? Like, one thing that I see a lot of women of color in particular struggling with, but I'm sure everybody will relate, is just this notion of confidence. Like there were times when, like, I remember going to business school feeling completely like I didn't belong. And the night before the strategy final, I literally stayed up all night and read the entire textbook. And I didn't need to. Like, I really didn't need to. And so I would just ask yourself, like, do you really need, I'm sure you'll absorb more the more you slow down, actually. And then to what end are you, like, what is it? Could you gain the confidence that you actually know a lot through other means? Like, there's something that my husband said, actually, which is, like, I always get nervous before presentations to the board or, something that's nerve-wracking. And he's like, you know more than most people out there. Like, why are you so nervous? You just need to own things better. Like, you just need to recognize that you actually know a lot. And the more you stress yourself out, the less you're going to absorb and learn. And so I just wonder, it's worth doing some introspection. I don't know if any of that resonates, but I would probably dig deeper and wonder, why is it that you're trying to learn so much? Like, maybe you, of course, learning is good, but you have to take care of yourself, because I think at some point your brain just doesn't work if you're running that hard. But
thank you.
Also examine the why.
Thank you.
I'll just add a little bit to that, right? For me, learning is an everyday habit. I'll just put it that way, right? Because either you start with the day reading your newspapers, articles, listening to blog posts, a podcast, or anything else. Learning to me, is an everyday habit. And as you get to, collect information as day progress along, you're going to find some area of interest. For me, when I was researching about this, when I heard about the climate pledge and, all the other stuff, it really attracted me towards that. And I wanted to dive deep on that area. So immediately I took the opportunity to dive deep. So you may want to have a structure around it. So everyday learning is a habit, right? Just like how we wake up, shower, eat, and go to bed. So spend like 20 minutes in a corner or 30 minutes in a corner just for yourself, right? Even for mental health. You don't want any distraction, no devices, no movies, no kids, nobody. Just sit around for yourself and reflect how your day is, and spend a little bit of time in enriching your day-to-day knowledge, right? Because we all live in this network world. So we all have to communicate and talk to each other and entertain each other and share our learnings with each other, right? To live in this network of, of the world that we live in. So I think knowledge to me is an everyday learning, and based on that learning, some area would be of an area of interest for you. And then you choose that and then you dive deep with that.
Yeah, Jan, was that helpful? I saw the thumbs up, so it looks like some good advice there. So to the extent that you all talked about kind of self-care and the other things that you go to, maybe this will be an interesting thing for us to use a chat. I'm going to ask the hobbies question. So like, talk to us about maybe one or two things, Nupur and Menaka, that you kind of lean on when it's like not work time. And in the chat for the community, feel free to throw, maybe you love to cook, maybe you love to play video games, maybe you love to work out and play sports. Let's take some time to throw that into the chat, and I'll give you the popcorn first, Nupur, to throw some hobbies in there, and then Menaka, throw you some popcorn as well to go after that. So I'm gonna get to putting mine in the chat right now, but go ahead.
So for me, exercise is really important. I think it helps me deal with stress, and I enjoy it. And so it's either running, hiking, or 2 years ago and I'm not an expert here, but I took on boxing, and that's extremely satisfying to like punch a bag, and so highly recommend it. It makes you a more grounded person. And then the second thing is my husband likes to cook a lot, and so hosting, and so I like to eat to balance the exercise and keep it all in an equilibrium.
Menaka, how about you?
I love to cook in this case. So I love to feed people more so than I feed myself. But I love working out because that's, again, a stress buster for me. At least 5 days in a week, if I can have a modest day with dinner with my family, ability to work out, read something, and a good day, that's really my wonderful day. That I really strive for those simple, modest days. In addition to that, I'm an environmental nerd. I love to spend my time outdoor. One of my biggest passion is to own an Airstream. So I want to live in an Airstream for maybe 3 months. I just want to do a cross-country road trip. And all I wanted to do is live in an Airstream and do the cross-country road trip. So, very passionate about that, and very passionate about traveling as well. That is something that I've always looked up to. And meeting new people, cultures, food, everything that comes with traveling.
Nice. And I wanted to hand it over to Pia too, because you're part of the core team here. Pia, would you come off and give us a couple of things that you're into from a hobbies perspective to get off of your schoolwork?
Yeah, I actually wrote my hobbies in the chat, but I also like to cook. I love watching YouTube videos and just watching a lot of documentaries on Netflix. I also am very into film photography and just creating art outside of a class constraint. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate everybody's. Let me scroll these as well, just to make sure I didn't miss any. Photography, creative expression, laughing from my stomach. Jan, I'm with you right there. We've been locked in for such a long time. I caught all the Netflix stand-up comedy specials. Traveling, thanks Paris, and building new connections. So the very, very last thing that I wanted to do, I know you've just got a couple minutes left, is to just give both of our special guests just a final words type of segment to be able to, if we've got nothing else from this gathering, from this talk, just a couple of things that you would want us as a community to take away. And then even from the community, if there's any kind of final takeaways that you've gotten from this talk, I'm sure that Nupur and sure that Menaka would be happy to hear them. Outside of that, feel free to connect with them and follow them, or do stuff on all the socials. I'm not sure how active either of them are, but I'm sure that they would gladly accept the connection requests and stuff like that. So for final words, I'll hand it over to Nupur first, and then over to Menaka, and then we'll have the community come in there as well.
Obviously, this is a community that wants to make the world better. The biggest thing that I'll say is thanks for having that angle on life, and for using the thing that makes me the thing I'm most passionate about is using the power of technology for good. And so the only thing I'd leave you with is, I don't really know exactly what everybody does in their day jobs, but there's so many advancements in tech, and try and use it. For my only advice is you feel a lot happier once your job is paying dividends to something with meaning.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I'll just go with 5 things as a key takeaway. Really short. Stay up to date. The problem landscape is changing. 10 years or 5 years ago, we didn't talk sustainability. We're talking sustainability every day today. So stay up to date. Pay forward the gratitude. I mean, for me, what others did to me, it's my time to pay forward the gratitude. Respect, and also be in a position of being respected as well. So, earning trust and respect is very important. And treat people for who they are, not so much about their birthrights or for the color of the skin or for their gender. So just, treat people for who they are, and then connect to communities. The problems that you face today might not be silly when you go out and really connect to the communities. You get to see the real problems in front of you. So connect with the communities and offer your help as much as you can from your point of view to the community. So 5 things that I wanted to do as a takeaway.
Let me double click there, because I don't know that we mentioned kind of the nonprofits and like the actual community work in the course of my question. So let me ask a final question about how have you, Nupur and Menaka, like found a way to connect organically, authentically with community, so that what you're doing for work isn't becoming detached from like the reality of what's happening at the grassroots level and on the streets. So Nupur, I know you've got some experience there. Menaka, same, and there might be even people in the community that want to come off to talk about theirs too.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly that, if you work in tech, everything can just feel sort of virtual and unconnected. And so I was trying to find some connection back to, honestly, San Francisco. The city has given me so much. I wanted to do something back. And so I was looking for some healthcare organizations that I would respect. And I found this amazing clinic. It's a free clinic for the underinsured and the underserved in the Excelsior district. It's called Clinic by the Bay. I help the clinic out. I volunteer, I serve on the board. I help them fundraise. I've helped them run a couple of user focus groups, which keeps you pretty grounded with patients and their actual needs. And, especially how people with various socioeconomic backgrounds struggle with healthcare. And so I find that part to be incredibly important, trying to make sure that you are not just sitting in your conference room thinking big ideas, but using the opportunity to connect locally and try and see what problems you can solve, and honestly becoming a better thinker that way, because you're actually experiencing real user problems in your backyard.
Yeah. And Menaka, before I jump to you, just even a principle of design thinking is rooted in empathy for like real users of the product or the process or the thing that you're building. So wanted to say that and ground the group in the fact that what we're talking about is just not like good to do, which it is. It's also a part of kind of what design is if you're trying to do it at a high level. So thanks for that. Clinic by the Bay, I put it in the comments there. Menaka, I'll hand the popcorn over to you for yours.
Yeah, for me, I think we have to build a continuous pipeline of women getting into the technology. So, I'm support the STEM programs, and one of the programs that I support is a Colorado-based program called Eureka, Girls for Eureka. It's an underprivileged community that's meant for STEM education, and I go there, I lecture there, I kind of mentor a few girls. And also the Girls in Tech in the SF San Francisco chapter. So that's another area that I act as an advisor, because I strongly believe that, tech can be a problem solver as well as a problem creator. So you have to be responsible in using tech. And we need to bring a strong pipeline of women into the technology space that will eventually lead into women taking leadership position, women taking equal position in the board position, women helping another women. So it starts with, schools, it starts with colleges. So I want to tackle the foundation of it. So that's why I'm very much connected from a community work perspective on STEM programs and advocating for women in tech.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for giving us a couple of organizations to think about. I know I do similar work on the board of Silicon Valley Education Foundation, and you heard last week from Street Code Academy that's working here in East Palo Alto to help kids learn how to code and to get the foundation that they need in order to break into tech. I saw Paris come online, and maybe before Paris, I see you, Jan, with the hand up. What's up, Jan?
I just want to say, like, I've been working with Black Girls Code since 2011. And one thing that's obviously coding is intimidating to girls who, they might not know anything about tech. It's really important to also talk about the other jobs within tech. And every time I teach, I make sure that, the girls understand that somebody's got to market this technology. Somebody's got to do the finance behind it. So even if tech is really too intimidating for you, you don't ever see yourself coding, don't give up. There's so many other positions. And I think at a young level, girls, and especially girls, need to understand that, because to your point, Nupur, like, I have been that girl in boardrooms when it was just me. And, these girls, teaching in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, they can't even understand seeing themselves or fathom seeing themselves in tech, but understanding that, okay, this might not work for you, but you could be in another part of tech is really important.
Yeah, amen. So Paris, I saw you come out on video and wanted to give you the opportunity and pass you the popcorn if you wanted to say a few words to the group here.
I know I joined a little bit late. However, I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I'm one of the AMs on the Salesforce account at AWS, and one of the areas that I oversee is .org, and as well as I'm a strong advocate for ID&E, our inclusion, diversity, and equity. And so just, I even helped kick off for BDSI. We created this volunteer month to help drive social impact and create positive change in the world at large. And we did like a lot of sustainability and cleaning up beaches and just helping out, like building homes, and I want to see us do more of that. And so I'd love just to connect with you all offline as well, to just see how we can help support some of your programs and initiatives, and maybe even we can get Salesforce involved as a customer, because I'm really trying to drive more community engagement with our customers, because that's just really something I'm passionate about as well. Like, I definitely think, technology is extremely powerful, and I love the fact, that it can be a force for good. However, it's like, are we controlling technology, or is technology controlling us? I think that's always something we have to toggle with. And do it responsibly.
Yeah, I said it before, and I think that there's, again, the openness and the heart for everybody on this call to say yes to a connection, to say yes to an opportunity to collaborate. So feel free to connect with anybody that you see here in the community. And I agree, like, tech is so big. There's so much money that's made. There's so much money in it for individuals who partake in the industry. And the challenge is for you to get wrapped up so much in the next thing for you that you forget about the people that helped you to get there, or the communities that you're impacting, such that this rat race or this, hamster wheel thing that we're doing is not sustainable. So the silver lining of COVID for me actually has been turn down your ambition, like look at the broader impacts of what's happening, reach out to friends you haven't talked to in a long time to catch up and see like what's happening in another community or in another part of the world. And when you understand some of those data points, it literally changed some of the decisions that I was making in my day-to-day life. So to be able to hold that for yourself, to be able to hold that so that you can bring that down to the next generation, so your kids are hearing different messaging from you, so that you're talking and acting different. That's what it's all about to me, and part of kind of my why in pushing forward the community college project. So I think, Nupur and Menaka have spoken really passionately about, healthcare and sustainability. And I get the sense that they would do this probably for a lot less money. They would do this for a lot less acclaim, because it's something that they found that they care a lot about and they think it's worth it. So yeah, to everybody that's on today, I'm hoping that this conversation has been some of what you expected, maybe some of the unexpected as well, in a delightful way. And yeah, with that, if there's no other questions or comments or commentary, I'm happy to give you all the rest of the evening to go and cook some food, or to go watch something to make you laugh out loud from your belly. But yeah, we definitely appreciate people for coming out. And if you want to go in your comments and find, where's the Zoom reaction for the party and the hearts, give Nupur and Menaka some claps and some snaps and some thumbs ups and stuff like that. Cool.
Thank you all.
All right. Well, Fitz, Morgan, Carlos, Dia, Megan, Paris, Jan, Menaka, Nupur, Pia, like we appreciate each of you. Have a great rest of the evening and looking forward to all the cool stuff that you're going to do and all the cool stuff that's going to come out of our community. So until next time, we're going to log off and say good night, but you all take care, be safe, have fun, make history and all that good stuff.
Thank you, Brendan.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.